Thanks. So I'm going to be talking about NFTs and how they can be used to monetize intellectual property. And so intellectual property generally covers 4 different types. There are patents, which cover inventions. There are trademarks for things like brand names and logos. Then there's copyrights for anything that's fixed in a tangible medium, any type of work of art, music, books, things like that. And then there's also trade secrets, which is kind of an alternative to patents. Instead of disclosing your invention to the public, you can keep it a secret. And if you maintain certain protections over that secret, then you have intellectual property rights over that. And one example of that is the Coca-Cola formula has been protected as a trade secret for something like 100 years. But currently, there are a lot of issues with monetizing IP. I'm going to talk specifically about patents, but many of these issues come up for all types of IP. So one main thing is that patents can be very difficult to value. They're illiquid. There's not exactly a marketplace where people can see different patents have specific values, and it's relatively rare that a patent does get monetized. So it's difficult to determine the value, and it's difficult to monetize a patent when you want to. And then in the few situations where patents are monetized, many of the licensing and settlement agreements occur behind closed doors, and this prevents the public from learning the terms. It's something like 2% or less of patents end up going through a litigation, and then of that, most of them end up being settled behind closed doors. So it's really a very small amount that anyone can see what the royalty rates ended up being for a particular patent. Another issue is that patents have more value in a large portfolio than individually. For example, I think about a decade ago, Google purchased a portfolio from Motorola of something like 10,000 patents. Companies generally like to purchase a bundle, thinking that a few of them will have most of the value and the rest won't be able to be used in an infringement suit or sold or licensed. So because of that, if a company has just a few patents or an individual inventor just has one, it becomes very difficult to monetize without having this portfolio. Additionally, the marketplace for a patent is typically limited to direct competitors. You generally aren't able to try to sell or license a patent to individual investors or to small companies. It would typically be a company who might be infringing that patent, or who is in that business and is interested in doing the same business and wanting the intellectual property there. Another big issue is that infringement suits can cost millions of dollars. So this is pretty cost prohibitive for small companies or individual inventors, even if they can identify an infringer who they're very confident infringes the patent and can result in a big lawsuit. They might not be able to put up the upfront costs for the lawsuit. Now, NFTs solve a lot of these issues, and I'm going to discuss this. So for one, NFTs provide a clear record of ownership, licensing deals, and encumbrances on a patent via the blockchain. Because the blockchain is public, anyone can see who the owner of the NFT is that corresponds to the IP. They can see licensing deals that were made with these NFTs and encumbrances. And this is a big deal because it allows for people to determine title and doesn't require the same kind of costly type of title search that you have in the outside of this environment. NFTs can also be fractionalized. So this allows IP holders to sell shares of the intellectual property to multiple buyers. Generally, patents can cost anywhere from tens of thousands to millions of dollars. And so that's really limiting the amount of companies that can acquire patents or a patent portfolio. But by being able to sell shares, you can sell a small amount to several different companies or even to individual investors. Additionally, as I mentioned before, litigation funding can be difficult to find when a lawsuit can cost millions of dollars. But here, what a company can do is they can create an NFT that represents their IP, sell a fraction of that NFT, so then they basically create a partnership with the buyer in the IP and use the proceeds to fund the litigation. This can also create a liquid marketplace similar to the marketplaces you have now for digital art NFTs like Bored Apes or CryptoPunks. And this liquid marketplace would allow for people to do some price discovery and have a much better idea of what individual patents or small portfolios are worth. Buyers also might want to speculate in part purchase partial interests of several patents or portfolios or other types of IP, similar to how people have been speculating with digital art. And once one buyer purchases an IP asset or a share of an asset and gets a great return, that might lead to several other buyers becoming interested. Another interesting thing that NFTs allow you to do is currently with a private company, most people aren't allowed to invest in that company unless they're accredited investors. But if most of the value of the company is the company's IP and the IP is in an NFT, someone could purchase a portion of the fraction of the NFT and then get essentially a share of the company or be able to invest in the company this way. Additionally, this reduces transaction costs and really simplifies the transaction process. Typically, when a patent or trademark is sold now, contracts need to be drawn up. There's a lot of back and forth between lawyers. But with NFTs, they can be listed on a marketplace and for a particular price. And once that price in cryptocurrency is sent from a buyer, the NFT is automatically transferred and there's almost no transaction costs besides for some network fees on that particular blockchain. Now, in addition to these many benefits, there are some drawbacks that I think are worth considering. For one, NFTs have not been tested in court as conferring legal ownership rights. So even though it would appear that if the NFT represents ownership in intellectual property, because it hasn't been tested in court, there's nothing that says legally you're the owner of that property. Patent ownership and trademark ownership is also already recorded in the patent office. So some naysayers may say that this is kind of duplicative, it's already being recorded, but there's no obligation that you have to record the ownership in the patent office. And so unlike NFTs, where every time the NFT is transferred, that has to be recorded on the chain, patent ownership or trademark ownership isn't necessarily being recorded at the USPTO. One other issue is that there's many different blockchains that support NFTs. So there's the Ethereum blockchain, there's the Flow blockchain, Wax, Hedera Hashgraph, and probably a few others. So multiple NFTs could be minted for the same IP asset on different blockchains, and you could have some title issues there. additionally, ownership transfers can be made outside of the NFT, so off of the blockchain, where the NFT is not being transferred, but the IP asset is being transferred in the traditional way through a contract. And so the NFT holder might have actually transacted and doesn't own the underlying IP. And as I mentioned before, most settlement deals happen behind closed doors and they're not made public, and companies might not want to open this up and publicly identify their licensees and the royalty rates. So right now, NFTs are being used to monetize IP in a few different ways. IBM and IPWE have partnered to mint NFTs for patents on IBM's blockchain, and Eric is going to talk about that in a few minutes. There's also another marketplace created by RMDS Labs exclusively for science and technology IP. That marketplace is currently in development, but it looks like they're using it for patents, but also for selling data sets, machine learning algorithms, different types of IP. And then you can also see right now on OpenSea, US patent 10.025.797 has been listed as an NFT for sale. Another important thing to consider is that NFTs, when they've been transferred, it's been kind of unclear what IP is being transferred with it. So with digital art, with things like Bored Apes and CryptoPunks, the buyer has the right to resell that and has the right to display their work, but it's unclear in many of those instances what copyrights they're receiving by purchasing that art. And so Andreessen Horowitz has been working on setting an industry standard for transferring IP via NFTs and including some licensing terms. Now, their licensing terms are specific to copyright, but additional licensing terms can always be added and modified to include patent or trademark rights that would be baked into the smart contract, so that way everyone can see exactly what rights are being transferred. And so Andreessen Horowitz right now has come up with 6 different licenses. They're similar to the Creative Commons licenses. And as I mentioned, they're baked directly into the smart contract. The license, it's called the Can't Be Evil license. I think that's a takeoff on the Don't Be Evil Creative Commons license. And it includes 6 different options for people to choose from, basically transferring the right to copy, display, and distribute the NFT, to use the NFT for commercial use, to modify and adapt or create a derivative work for the NFT, and also to sublicense it. And in some of these, the purchaser gets an exclusive right where only they have the copyright protection to basically reproduce this and make derivative works, or in others, they can have non-exclusive rights where maybe the original creator also has the rights to reproduce and to sublicense. And additionally, some of these have termination clauses for if the NFT is being used for hate speech. And now I'm going to turn things over to Eric.